There's a particular silence that lives inside a funeral home after the last car's pulled away. It's not a peaceful silence. It's heavy. It's the sound of what's been left behind. Grief, questions, the phantom echo of a life that was just there moments ago. For years, I breathed that silence. I'd walk through the empty chapels, I'd straighten the chairs, and the air itself would feel thick, like trying to move through water. I remember one day in particular. We had just finished the service for a young man barely in his 20s. His parents were shattered, the kind of broken that you can't fix, you just witness. I did my job. I offered the quiet words, the steady hand, the professional calm that people pay for. But when it was over, and I was alone in that deafening quiet, something inside of me cracked. The weight of it all, the grief I was holding for them, the grief I was holding for my own life, the constant, relentless proximity to the end, it was too much. I got in my car, and just for a minute, I sat there. The silence followed me. It was in my head, it was in my chest, and I couldn't shake it. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to disappear. And on instinct, I turned the key and the radio came on. It was a song I'd heard 100 times, but in that moment, it wasn't just a song. The first note, it was like a key turning in a lock I didn't know was there. The melody cut through the silence, not by replacing it, but by giving it a voice. The lyrics spoke of loss, of being lost, of trying to find this way. And for the first time all day, I wasn't just a funeral director. I wasn't just a stoic professional. I was a human being falling apart in a parking lot. And the music was the only thing holding the pieces together. I started to cry, not just for that family, but for everything. That's the thing about music. It doesn't just distract us from the pain. It meets us inside of it. It gives our suffering a soundtrack. And in doing so, it makes it bearable. It reminds us that we're not the first to feel this way. And we won't be the last. Today, we're not talking about near-death experiences in traditional senses. We're talking about the death of peace, the death of hope, the moments when life brings you to your knees. And we're talking about the one thing that has the power to pull us back from that abyss: music. If this is the first time I've met you here and you have not subscribed yet, let's just say I hope you enjoy having a song stuck in your head for the next 3 weeks. The most annoying song you possibly ever imagine, on loop, forever. Just don't risk it. Hit subscribe right now. Click the bell to be notified when I release content like this. It's free. It's the best way to support this channel. And you protect your sanity. You're welcome. Today, we're going to explore why music is not a luxury, but a fundamental tool for survival. We're going to look at the science of how it changes our brains. We'll hear a story about a woman who used it to rebuild her world after it was totally shattered, and we're going to talk about how you can use it to navigate your own dark times. We've all felt it, right? That chill that runs down your spine during a powerful crescendo. The way a certain song can instantly transport you back to this specific moment in time. So vividly, it's like you're there. The urge to move, to dance when you hear a beat that you can't resist. This isn't just a feeling. It's a profound neurological event. It's a symphony happening inside your brain, inside your skull. When you listen to music, your brain lights up like a city at night. It's not just one area either that's activated. It's a full-blown, coordinated effort. The auditory cortex processes the notes and the rhythms. The motor cortex gets you tapping your foot. The limbic system, your emotional core, is where the magic really happens. Music triggers the release of dopamine, that feel-good neurotransmitter. It's the same chemical that's released when you eat your favorite food or you laugh with a friend. It's your brain's reward system, and music knows exactly how to play it. And this is why listening to an uplifting song can genuinely make you feel happier and more optimistic. It's not just a placebo, no, it's brain chemistry. But it does go deeper than just pleasure. Like during times of high stress and anxiety, when you're grieving, when you're facing a crisis, Your body, it's flooded with a hormone that's called cortisol. It's the fight or flight hormone. In short bursts, it is useful. But when you're living in this state of chronic stress, high cortisol levels can be devastating to your physical and mental health. Not to mention, it makes you look bloated. And this is where music becomes a form of medicine, because studies have shown that listening to the very slow and calming music can significantly reduce cortisol levels. It can even lower your heart rate, decrease your blood pressure, and it eases muscle tension. It physically calms your body's stress response. Think about it. Lullabies are one of the oldest and most universal forms of music. We instinctively know how to use sound to soothe a distressed child. And the same principle, that applies to our adult selves. We're all just adult babies. And then there's the connection to memory. Music and memory are intrinsically linked in the brain. It's magnificent to think about. It's often stored in the same regions. This is why a song from your teenage years brings back a flood of memories. The smell of the school gym, the feeling of your first crush. This connection is so powerful that it's being used right now to treat patients with Alzheimer's and dementia. People who have lost the ability to recognize their own family can sometimes hear a song from their past, and just for a brief moment, a miraculous one, they come back, they remember, they sing, but for our purposes, this link to memory is a double-edged sword because it anchors us to painful moments. The song forever tied to a breakup or a loss. But it can also be this lifeline. It can remind us of who we were before the hard times hit. It can connect us to a version of ourselves that was happy, that was strong, hopeful. And sometimes just being reminded that that person still exists somewhere inside of you is enough to keep you going. The science is fascinating, but it only tells us the how. It doesn't fully capture the why. Why does a specific combination of frequencies and rhythms have the power to make us feel understood? Why can a stranger with a guitar sing a song about their pain and have it feel like they're singing about ours? To understand that, we have to move beyond the brain and into the heart. We have to look at the stories. I want to tell you a story about this woman that we're going to call Elara. Do you know an Elara? Elara wasn't just a musician. Music was her native language. She was a cellist. And from the time she was a little girl, the cello was an extension of her body. It was how she processed the entire world. When she was happy, the music soared. When she was heartbroken, the notes wept with a depth that words could never even capture. She was on a path to greatness, playing with orchestras and concert halls where the acoustics were so perfect that you could hear this pin drop. Her life was a composition, and it was beautiful. And then one rainy Tuesday, the music stopped. A car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light. Elara survived, but her left hand did not. Nerves were severed. Bones were shattered. After multiple surgeries, the doctors gave her the verdict. She would have limited mobility and chronic pain for the rest of her life, and she would never play the cello again. The silence that followed was worse than the crash itself. It was a void. Her entire identity, the very language she used to speak to the world and to herself, was gone. She was trapped in a body that had betrayed her, in a life that was suddenly muted. This deep and suffocating depression set in. The concert halls were replaced by the 4 white walls of a hospital room. Then the 4 familiar walls of her apartment, which now felt like a prison. Her cello, her soulmate, it sat in its case in the corner of the room, this silent monument to the life she'd lost. She couldn't even listen to music. Classical music was a torturous reminder of what she'd lost. Pop music felt shallow and insulting. Every song was a ghost. So she lived in the silence, and the silence began to eat her alive. Her friends and family, they tried to reach her, but she was adrift on this ocean of grief that they could not cross. Months went by. The world kept spinning, but hers stopped. One afternoon, her physical therapist, a very kind and firm woman, came to her apartment for a session. Her therapist saw the cello case in the corner, gathering dust. She saw the look in Elara's eyes, a hollow emptiness that she'd seen in soldiers returning from war. At the end of the session, her therapist didn't pack up her things right away. Instead, she said, "I know you can't play, but can you hold it?" Elara stared at her. "Why would I do that?" Because it was never just about the notes, was it? And that question hung in the air. Elara felt a flash of anger. How could this woman, who dealt with muscles and joints, possibly understand the soul-deep connection she had with her instrument? But then the anger subsided, and it was replaced by the quiet, aching truth of her therapist's words. No, it was never just about the notes. It was about the vibration of the wood against her chest, the scent of the rosin, the feeling of pouring every ounce of her being into something, hearing it, singing back to her. Hesitantly, fighting every instinct to run, Elara walked to the corner of the room. She trembled as she undid the latches on the case. The scent hit her first. Old wood. Something that smelled like memory. There it was. Her cello. It looked smaller, somehow. More vulnerable, even. With her good right hand and the awkward, clumsy assistance of her left, she lifted it. The weight was familiar, a phantom limb she hadn't realized was missing. She sat on the floor, cradling it in her lap, the way she had thousands of times before. She rested her cheek against its smooth and cool surface. And then she broke. This sob tore from her throat, a sound more raw and dissonant than any note she'd ever played. It was a sound from the place where words do not exist. She wept for her hand, for her future, for the music that had been stolen from her. She cried for the little girl inside who had first fallen in love with this beautiful, unwieldy instrument. She cried until she was empty, until there was nothing left but the feeling of the wood against her skin and the echo of her own grief in the silent apartment. She didn't know how long she sat there, holding the cello like a fallen comrade. But when the storm of tears passed, something had shifted. The silence in the room was different. It was no longer a void. It was just quiet. The cello wasn't a monument to her failure anymore. It was just a cello, an object of beauty, a friend. That day was not an end to her pain, but it sure was the end of the silence. Slowly, cautiously, Elara began to let music back into her life. It started small. She couldn't bear to listen to the symphony she once played, so she explored other worlds. She listened to ambient music, soundscapes that felt like weather patterns. She listened to folk songs from countries that she'd never even visited, the raw, untrained voices telling stories of hardship and resilience. And she listened to the blues, to the sound of pain being transformed into something beautiful, something shared. She was no longer a performer, a creator. She was just a listener. And in listening, she began to heal. One day, she took the cello out of its case again. She didn't try to play a melody. She just used her right hand to pluck a single open string. That note resonated through the body of the instrument, a low, mournful hum. She felt the vibration travel through the wood and into her own body. It was a single note, but it was a start. It was a sound she made. It was proof that she was still there. And the real transformation, however, came a year later. A friend of hers ran a community music program for underprivileged kids. Their cello teacher just quit, and they were desperate. "I know you can't play, Elara," her friend said, "but can you teach? Can you just show them the basics? Anything is better than nothing." Elara's first instinct was to say no. it would be too painful. Absolutely not. But then she thought of the silence. She thought of the kids who might never get to feel the magic she had known. She agreed to try. Her first student was a shy 7-year-old girl named Maya, who was so small the quarter-sized cello looked huge on her. Elara's hands ached with that phantom memory of how to hold the bow, how to place the fingers. She couldn't demonstrate properly. She had to use words and metaphors, guiding Maya's small hands with her own instead of her mirroring. It was clumsy. It was frustrating, but Maya played her first note. It was scratchy, out of tune, and utterly perfect. In that moment, Elara understood. The music hadn't died with her ability to play. It was a current, a river, and it just needed this new channel to flow through. She couldn't be the river anymore, but she could be the one who cleared the path for it. Elara found a new purpose. She became a teacher. She poured all the love, all the knowledge, all the passion she had for her instrument into her students. She taught them not just how to play the notes, but how to listen, how to feel, how to pour their own stories into the music. One evening, she sat in the back of a small auditorium watching Maya, now 9 years old, perform in a student recital. Maya was playing a simple Bach piece, one Elara had learned when she was about the same age. The notes were not perfect, but they were full of life, full of a fierce and joyful concentration. And as she listened, Elara felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt since before the accident. The music was still hers. It lived in the hands of this little girl and in the hands of all the other students she would go on to teach. She had lost her voice, but she had taught others how to sing. The silence in her life had finally been filled, not with the sound of her own playing, but with something far more profound. The sound of music itself, living on. Elara's story is a powerful reminder that our relationship with music can change. Yes, it can evolve, but it never has to die. She had to find a new way to let it into her life, and we can do the same. When you're in the thick of it, when the grief is heavy, the anxiety crippling, the future feels like a blank wall, music can be your most trusted ally. But you have to be intentional about it. You have to build your own soundtrack for survival. So, how do you do that? I want to give you a few practical ways to think about using music, not just as background noise, but as a tool for healing. First, curate your catharsis. Create a grief playlist. There's a misconception that when you're sad, you should force yourself to listen to happy music. And sometimes that works, but other times it feels like a lie. It's like having someone tell you to cheer up when your world is falling apart. It's invalidating. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is listen to a song that matches your pain. A song that says, yeah, this hurts. It's supposed to. I see you. When you listen to a sad song, your brain releases a hormone called prolactin, which is associated with crying and consolation. It's this chemical that literally helps you process grief and feel a sense of comfort. Our bodies are powerful, magnificent things, so give yourself permission to feel it. Create a playlist of songs that understand your sadness. Let the music be a safe space for you to cry, to rage, to just sit with the pain without any judgment. It's not about wallowing. It's about processing. It's about letting the music draw the poison out. Second, build your anchor. Create a resilience playlist. And this is the opposite of the grief playlist. This is your connection back to strength. This playlist should be filled with songs that are tied to good memories. The song that was playing on your first road trip with your best friend. The anthem you and your brother used to scream in the car. The music from a time in your life when you felt powerful, happy, alive. As we talked about, music is a powerful trigger for memory. When you're lost in the fog of a hard time, it's easy to forget that you've ever felt any other way. This playlist is your anchor. It's a reminder of your own history of resilience. It says, You've been happy before, and you will be again, buddy. You have been strong before, and that strength is still there. Listen to it when you need to remember who you are beyond your current struggle. Third, find your fuel. Create an action playlist. Depression, grief, burnout, that drains your energy. They make the smallest tasks like getting out of bed or taking a shower or recording this feel like climbing a mountain. On those days, you need fuel. And this is where rhythm and tempo come in. Create a playlist of songs that make you want to move. Songs with a strong beat, high energy, motivational lyrics. It doesn't matter if it's punk rock, hip hop, gospel. If it makes your head nod and your heart beat a little faster, put it on the list. Use this playlist as a ritual. When you need to get up and face the day, put it on. Let the music be the spark. The physical act of moving to a beat can literally help shake off that feeling of lethargic, and it changes your mental state. It's not about solving all your problems. It's about winning the first battle of the day. The battle to simply get moving. Fourth, make space for silence. Create a wordless playlist. Sometimes words are just too much. When your mind is racing with anxious thoughts, the last thing you need is more words from a song telling you what to think or what to feel. This is when instrumental music could be your best buddy. Classical, ambient, lo-fi beats, cinematic scores, electronic music, anything without lyrics. Wordless music creates this emotional landscape without giving you a map. It allows you to project your own feelings onto it. It could be a calm space for you to think, to meditate, to breathe, or it can be a vast and epic space for you to feel the full scale of your emotions without the constraint of someone else's story. It's your soundtrack for your movie. And finally, the most important step, create. Don't just consume. This is what Elara discovered. The ultimate healing power of music comes not just from listening, but from participating. You don't have to be a professional musician. You don't even have to be good. Sing in the shower. Hum a tune while you're walking. Tap out a rhythm on your steering wheel. If you're feeling brave, pick up a cheap ukulele or a keyboard and learn 3 chords on YouTube. Write a terrible poem and try to put a melody to it. The act of creation itself, no matter how small, is an act of defiance against despair. It's a way of taking the chaos and the pain inside of you and giving it form. It shifts you from being a passive recipient of your circumstances to an active creator of your reality. It's a declaration that even in the dark, you can still make something. And that, my friends, is the beginning of hope. Whether you're building these playlists, learning a few chords on a guitar, or you're just trying to get through the day, the principle is the same. You are actively choosing to engage with your healing. You are refusing to let the silence win. I think back to that day in the funeral home parking lot. That song on the radio didn't magically fix my burnout. It didn't erase the pain of the family that I had just served. It didn't solve any of my problems. What it did do was far more important. It reached into the suffocating, isolating silence of my own head, and it said, "You are not alone in this feeling." The songwriter, a person I'd never met, had felt something similar enough to write about it. The musicians had poured their own experiences into the performance, and millions of other people had listened to that same song and felt a flicker of recognition in their own hearts. In that moment, my personal, private pain became part of a universal human experience. I was just one voice in a global chorus of people who were hurting and trying and surviving. And that connection, the one I talk about all the time, that's what saves us. Hard times will come for all of us. They are the one guarantee of this mortal life outside of us dying. Grief, loss, failure, heartbreak. They are the dissonant chords in the symphony of our existence. We can't avoid them, but we can choose how we listen to them. We can choose to find the melody within the noise. Your life is a song. Right now, it might feel like a funeral dirge. It might be a chaotic, angry punk anthem. It might be a quiet, ambient track full of space and uncertainty. And that's okay. There is no wrong way for it to sound. The only thing that matters is that you don't let it fade to silence. Listen to the music that meets you where you are. Use it to honor your pain. Use it to remember your strength. Use it to fuel your next step, no matter how small. And when you're ready, try to add your own note to the composition. Your survival is a creative act. The very fact that you are still here, still breathing, still listening, that is a masterpiece in the making. The power of music isn't that it saves us from the storm. It's that it teaches us how to dance. It gives us a rhythm to hold on to when the world is spinning out of control. It is the steady, persistent heartbeat that reminds us we're all still alive. What is the song that got you through your darkest night? What's on your grief playlist? What's on your resilience playlist? Let me know in the comments. I would appreciate you sharing. It's a place where we hold space for each other's stories right here. And if you want to have a deeper connection, join the Mortals. Link is in the description. All access, first looks, first listens, exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. Or you can visit nathanmorrismusic.com. Your story and your song might be the very thing someone else needs to hear today. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves and listen for the music, because even in the deepest silence, it's there and it's playing for you. I'll see you at the next video.